Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will be going over how we breathe. This is a quick overview of what we have already started to learn about the respiratory system. We will be going over the entire respiratory system shown on this diagram. We have already gone over the upper part of the respiratory system. We have yet to gone over the lower respiratory system in depth. We have gone through the nose and nasal cavity, the trachea, the pharynx, larynx, and cilia. So cilia would be here in the nasal cavity. Then would be the larynx. No, this is the larynx, this is the pharynx. And then this is the trachea. Okay, so getting started, the first organ name we are going to be talking about is the nose. So the nose is the first part in the first line of action in the respiratory system. This is where air enters and exits. You could also say that the mouth is part of the respiratory system, but it is not as major of a component as the nose or nasal cavity. I say this because the mouth has more than one job and is more linkly close to the digestive system than the respiratory system. Now, as I've already said, this is where air enters the body, and in this part of the respiratory system, you will find mucus, and you will also find cilia. And remember, the cilia are the mini nose hairs within the nasal cavity, and this is where mucus is produced and stored for the most part. And the job of the cilia is to either the job of the cilia is to remove the mucus from the body, either to push it down through the esophagus where it can be digested in the stomach, where the stomach acid can actually break down the bacteria that gets into your nose, or the cilia pushes out the mucus through your nose in the form of a sneeze or a runny nose if you are under the weather. Now, the second organ name that we will be talking about is the pharynx. And this is commonly called the throat. And the pharynx is right here. This is where the pharynx shares its responsibility with the digestive system as well as the respiratory system, because the pharynx branches off into the trachea and the esophagus. The esophagus is located behind the trachea. So as I've just said, it is shared with the digestive system, and this organ transfers air to the trachea. And then the next organ name is the trachea, commonly called the windpipe. The particles that irritate this organ make you cough. So this is what is to blame when you do have a cough. This is often where mucus or other allergens or bacteria get into the trachea, and the body is trying to expel the mucus or bacteria through the mouth. And this happens when the mucus does not go down the esophagus. When it is pushed down through the body, it is pushed into the trachea, and that irritates the trachea, causing your body to convulse and to cough to try and get out whatever is irritating that area. And this organ leads directly to the bronchi, which is the next organ. Now, bronchi are within the lungs. They branch out within the lungs as well. And these passages or tubes direct air to the lungs. So what happens is when we breathe in, it goes through our nose, down our pharynx into our trachea, and then directly into the bronchi inside of the lungs. From there, we are within the lungs, and these are the main organs of the respiratory system. Each bronchi breaks into smaller tubes that end in grape-like structures, here, 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 and here, and these are called alveoli. And this alveoli helps gases move between the lungs and blood. So again, what happens when we breathe in? It goes down and then through the bronchi, through the alveoli, and then it goes into the lungs or it goes into the bloodstream or in blood system. The gas that is transferred from lungs into blood is oxygen, and the gas that's transferred out of the blood into the lungs is carbon dioxide. Now, I also wanted to draw your attention to the shape of the lungs. Notice that this lung is a tiny bit smaller than this lung. This lung over here has lots of room to expand and then compress through breathing, and then this lung can still expand and compress through breathing, but on this side of the body, this is also where the heart is. You can actually see where the heart would actually be. Most people think the heart is up here, when in reality it is much more down here. And that is why this lung is smaller a little bit in comparison to this lung. So quick review, that oxygen goes in our nose, down our pharynx, down our trachea, into our bronchi, through our alveoli, into our lungs, and then oxygen goes into the blood, and the gas is transferred from the blood into the lungs is carbon dioxide. So the reverse order out would be carbon dioxide comes out of the lungs into the alveoli, then the bronchi, then the trachea, then the pharynx, and then out through the nose or mouth. And I do know that the larynx is not on here, but that is this part right here. It is commonly called the voice box, and that's what helps you talk. So I'm using my own larynx right now to communicate this information to you. This is what everyone uses to speak. It is not a major component of how we breathe. That is why it is not included in how we breathe, but it is a part of the respiratory system.